Thank you guys for coming. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules. I remember the life of a student. Hasn't been that long. Sad, but somehow it has been 10 years since I left school, so I understand what you guys are going through as students. And if you're here as alumni, I really understand what you're going through. So today we're going to talk about the gut-brain axis, but also the physical connection between the gut-brain axis, which is so strongly involved in so many other different processes in the body. And it's going to really help you to take amazing notes and learn what causes the vagus nerve to not work correctly and what you can do about it as a nutritionist for your clients to give them advice to really help them optimize their health. Okay? I did write a book on the topic called Activate Your Vagus Nerve. There are copies if you guys want to grab them afterwards. And the reason this came to me, I'll go through as well. So let me just tell you a little bit about me first. I am a chiropractor by profession. This fun picture right here was the first picture of me and my wife when I actually found out that day that I was going to be valedictorian of my graduating class at CMCC in 2010, which was very exciting, but that's also around the same time we started dating, and that's the first official picture of us together. And as you can see now, somehow 9.5 years later, we have this awesome little person with us, which is amazing. She's, come on in. Come on.
Right.
My little,
I mean,
oh, not at all. My wonderful 2.5-year-old daughter, who keeps me very busy all the time. And she really is the reason that I got into functional medicine. So I practice functional medicine. Since completing chiropractic, I knew that I wanted to help people with health. Even before that, I always knew health was something that needed to be achieved. And as you can see, at that time, I wasn't exactly living what I was trying to preach. I wasn't exactly a picture of health. And I'm not exactly there right now, but we're all on our own journeys. As you can see, many years later, I'm a few pounds down from where I was at my absolute worst. Things have really changed, but I was dealing with a lot of other things during that time. I had high blood pressure, I had high blood sugar, I had IBS, I was dealing with sleep apnea, and all of these things were holding me back from really achieving what I could have and taking me to the next level in terms of my professional success, but really what I could achieve as a human, period. And so when I decided to make a difference, it was because I wanted my kids not to go through the same issues that I was going through. I wanted them not to have to experience the IBS and the sleep apnea and the health challenges and the low energy that comes along with that. So that's why I do what I do. And so I'll talk a little bit about why the vagus nerve really came to be. As a chiropractor, my training was really truly about the nervous system and really understanding how the nervous system affects health. And the vagus nerve was always something that stuck out to me because it had such broad connection to all of the organs in our body, for the most part. It always kind of stuck out, and it was always a really interesting component to me. And then I wrote a blog post once I got into functional medicine and got a little deeper and really was addressing my own health. I was working with a lot of clients that were dealing with health conditions from liver detoxification issues and gut dysfunction and dysbiosis and dealing with issues of pancreatic insufficiency because they had metabolic issues and blood sugar imbalance and stuff like that. And then I kind of realized that the link for all of these organs was the vagus nerve. It's that one connecting point from the brain to all of those organs that sends information bidirectionally. And that's why the vagus nerve was so important. It's so extensive. The vagus nerve is the 10th cranial nerve. It's the only nerve that goes out of the cranium. It's the only cranial nerve that leaves this cavity of our head. And it goes to so many different organs. It goes to the heart, to the lungs. It goes to our gut. It goes to our blood vessels and manages blood pressure levels. It goes to our pancreas, it goes to our small intestine, our large intestine, and obviously it's going to be sending information from that point to the brain and back to those organs. It's involved in controlling the throat muscles and vocalizing. The reason I have a voice right now is because I can have pitch and tonality in my voice is because the muscles of the larynx around my voice box are being innervated and getting signals from the vagus nerve. It conveys information from all of the organs to the brain, the ones that we talked about. Blood pressure, it manages blood pressure levels, and through the carotid bodies actually sends information to the brain telling us where we are from blood pressure. It controls digestion and actually is responsible for that satiety feeling, something that I didn't realize when I was 250 pounds at my max. It causes fainting when overstimulated, and that's something we can talk about because that's when we have problems in the vagus nerve. So what are the functions of the vagus nerve? Let's get completely into it. This is like the anatomy physiology understanding. So 80% of the information that's carried on the vagus nerve is afferent. Afferent information means from the gut, from the organ to the brain. So what does that mean? It's sending information. 80% of the information on this nerve is getting information from those organs and sending it up. It's managing function. It's telling us what's going on in those organs. It's conveying information as to what's happening. It's a status update. 15% of the information is parasympathetic, and this is where vagus nerve is different from so many other nerves in the body. It controls the parasympathetic component of the autonomic nervous system. So essentially, it's sending signals from the brain to all of these organs to do their job without us consciously knowing it. It's automatic. It's automatically controlling our heart. I'm not consciously thinking about beating my heart right now. It's automatically controlling my lungs. I might be thinking about breathing right now, but normally it's doing it on its own. Stomach, liver, pancreas, gallbladder, you name it, it's managing all those things parasympathetically, automatically. And it's only going to work when we're in a rest and digest state. So we need to make sure that that rest and digest information is being transferred from the brain to the organs. 4% of the information on the vagus nerve is motor. And so I talked a little bit about this, but the muscles of the airway, the muscles of the voice box, the larynx, the pharynx, all of those muscles of the head and neck area internally are innervated by the vagus nerve. And this is important to remember for airway stuff later on, and obviously for our voice and for our understanding of pitch and tonality when we speak. And then we have 1% of the information, the last little bit, is actually sensation from the ear. And so I have a fun little picture of the ear in the corner there. And as you can see, the vast majority of information being sent through vagus nerve is afferent. It's coming from the organs going up, and it's a status update to the brain, telling the brain what's going on. It's really giving us that understanding of what's happening internally. We can use these 4 and 1% motor and sensory areas to really address the 15 and the 80. And that's where we're going to talk about treatment, and that's where we're going to get into some of the exercises that we can do near the end of this. There's one thing that 15% parasympathetic control also manages, and this is a really important factor, and you guys will love this. It is the cholinergic anti-inflammatory system. The vagus nerve is how we control inflammation in the body. The major neurotransmitter that is produced by vagus nerve, in fact, it's the only neurotransmitter sent through the vagus nerve, is acetylcholine. And acetylcholine, when going to specific nerves, for example in the spleen, is going to help limit TNF-alpha, IL-1, IL-8, all of the inflammatory cytokines and the inflammatory process is going to shut those down. And through the actual vagus nerve itself, when it goes to the intestines, it's actually directly sending acetylcholine to the myenteric plexus. This is the enteric nervous system, telling the enteric nervous system to shut down macrophage activity in the gut. Gut inflammation is huge. We all know this. It's involved in autoimmune conditions. It's involved in inflammatory bowel diseases. It's involved in so many different conditions in our gut, in our body. When inflammation is not controlled, we lead to chronic health conditions and chronic diseases. This is a really, really important factor to remember. When we don't have control of our vagus nerve, we don't have control of our inflammation levels. And in doing so, in saying this, I'm confident that I can say that the vagus nerve is the pathway to optimal health. If you can't optimize your vagus function, if it's not working the way that it should be, you cannot be healthy. You're not going to get that information up from the gut to the brain. You're not going to get that information down to control the inflammation. It's just not working correctly. And that's why I wrote the book. So now that we know the importance of the vagus nerve and how this information flows, we have to figure out what could go wrong in the vagus nerve. We know a lot of stuff can go wrong in Vegas, the city. I decided to put nerve just for fun. We've all watched movies. So what could go wrong in Vegas? Any ideas? What are the things that you think could trigger? And these are common things that all of us know are probably going to affect us. So any ideas?
Stress.
Stress is huge. We're going to talk about stress. And everything that I talk about is some form of stress. Okay?
Neck injury.
Neck injury, that's a physical trauma and something that you will see in practice 100%. I didn't bring it up in here, but yes, you are absolutely correct.
How about lack of sleep?
Lack of sleep is part of this. We'll talk about sleep as well.
Diet?
Diet is huge. So that's where I'm going to start. Hyperinflammatory diet. If we constantly have inflammation being produced, if we constantly are throwing inflammatory things in, how often are we able to put those brakes on? The brakes wear out after a while, right? So we have to make sure that the brakes are working and we can't keep throwing crap at it. So hyperinflammatory diet is one of the major, most common reasons for why the vagus nerve is not going to be able to do its job, because inflammation levels are too high. And as you said, yes, stress. This is biochemical stress on the body. Okay? And then what does this lead to? If we have a hyperinflammatory diet, what does it lead to? It leads to dysbiosis. It leads to imbalances in our gut bacteria, parasites, viruses, yeast, worms. You'd be shocked to see what comes out of people. Some people know firsthand. These things exist. We test for them. That's what I do as a functional medicine practitioner. A lot of what I do is testing. We test, we don't guess. And when we test, we're able to see what's really going on internally. So I use the GI map stool test as my major stool tester to see what's going on. Bacteria, parasites, viruses, yeast, worms. And then we're able to see inflammatory levels. Calprotectin is a great marker for inflammation. We're able to see Sig-A levels in the inflammatory system that's working over there. Anti-gliadin, IgA, which is gluten sensitivity, we can see through this test. And so that's why I talk a lot about this, and I talk about it in the book quite a bit as well. The extent to which dysbiosis or imbalance in the gut can lead to vagus nerve dysfunction and inflammatory issues. When we have a lot of crap coming in from bad bacteria, parasites, viruses, and yeast, that crap eventually gets into, I don't know what's going on here, push something. There we go. The liver. And when we back up the liver, we are unable to detoxify and clear out crap. What nerve innervates the liver? The vagus nerve. The liver actually has about 500 different functions. I actually loved seeing in Elizabeth's office, she had the human factory picture. If you get a chance to go take a look at that, it's spectacular. And there were more functions going on in the liver than anywhere else in the body. The liver is essentially the most important single organ for health in the body. And if that gets backed up, we're going to have excess inflammation, we're going to have excess toxin, we're going to have excess buildup of sugars and things that can't be controlled by other organs. It has to be working over here. And that signal needs to work really well, going from the liver to the brain and back down as a status update as well. And then the next one, the one that we talked a little bit about in terms of sleep, is actually more focused on breathing and dysfunctional breathing. And this is something that I was talking about earlier that I was dealing with sleep apnea. My mom actually has a CPAP machine. This is something that my family has dealt with, and I've personally dealt with quite a bit. But dysfunctional breathing is the single most common thing that I see in practice, by far. People do not breathe correctly. So I'm going to have us all do a bit of an exercise right now. So just sitting in your chair, you can sit up. And I like to put one hand on the belly and one hand on the chest. And I get my patients to do this to make sure that they're breathing correctly, and they're just shocked as to the results often. It's really a lot of fun. So this is something you can easily do with your patients. Have them close their eyes and take a deep breath in. I want you to pay attention on the next breath, deep breath in and out. Which hand is moving?
Stomach. Chest.
Which one should be moving?
Stomach.
We should be breathing through our belly. When we breathe correctly, we're actually massaging all of the organs underneath. We're causing movement to occur. I'm going to show you a video of that afterwards. But we should not be using all of our accessory muscles for breathing. We should not be using our traps and our levators. This is my chiropractor coming out. We shouldn't be using all of these big chest muscles. We should be using the diaphragm. And then the diaphragm goes down, it causes expansion of the belly. This is what a lot of great tools like yoga and Pilates are based on, is focusing on the breath, learning to breathe correctly. So this is an important factor. If we're not breathing correctly, we cannot activate the vagus nerve. We are in stress. So think of it this way. We've got this autonomic balance. We've got parasympathetic and sympathetic. Are we on the same page? Everybody understand this? So parasympathetic is controlled through the vagus nerve. It's the rest and digest side. It's the side we should be on 90 to 95% of the time. The sympathetic is something that is specific for fight or flight, for survival. And that should only be activated 5 to 10% of the time. We should be using both. We cannot be purely in parasympathetic all the time. But that said, we need to be able to have a balance between those two. Now, imagine you're being chased by, let's say it was evolutionary times, a saber-toothed tiger. A saber-toothed tiger came into the door here. What would happen to all of us immediately in that moment? Stress. So what are the stress responses of fight or flight? So what would happen? Eyes would dilate or constrict? They would dilate so that we can see everything, make sure that we can get to where we need to get to. What would happen to our breathing? Speed up and get shallow on top of that. Shallow breathing occurs in the chest. Right? What else happens to our organs? Are we going to start digesting food when a saber-toothed tiger walks in? We're going to shut that down. Exactly. What else is going to happen? This is a fun one. Bladder control. Are we going to keep it or lose it? Lose it. Exactly. So oftentimes this is why we pee our pants when we're scared. Absolutely. So essentially, we need to make sure that there's a good balance here. But those parasympathetic things are inputs that we can do when we breathe, when we're not under stress. So when we breathe correctly using our diaphragm, when we have deep abdominal belly breathing working, that is an important factor to tell us that we are in rest and digest, not in fight or flight. And that's how we can actually control it on our own. So anytime you're feeling really stressed out, oh my God, something is due, something is killing me, I need to get something done, take a moment and take a deep breath. And you'll notice that you shift your physiology into that parasympathetic rest and digest very quickly. And that's something that you can share with your clients. It works wonders. And funny enough, got a review from my book. Never met this person, didn't know who they were. They read my book and they did deep breathing for 5 minutes. They were dealing with IBS-C, had not gone to the bathroom in 6 days or something like that. And for 4 days in a row, they did that 5 minutes of deep belly breathing and they went to the bathroom. 4 days in a row. It's crazy what breathing can do.
Question.
Yes.
So sleep apnea can be cured? Because I have a friend who's on that machine
Yes.
at night. So
100% it can. I've never been on a CPAP, lucky enough, but I don't have sleep apnea anymore. I think, no, I don't have a picture of it. The way that sleep apnea occurs is the muscles of the pharynx and the larynx actually collapse on each other. And that occurs because of weakness in those muscles weakness in the muscles happens because there's not enough signaling going to those muscles. So if we're breathing correctly, if we're stimulating or activating the vagus nerve using a lot of these exercises, we're going to bring back tonicity into those muscles, and we're going to reduce the risk of the collapse of the airway.
So between the breathing and the muscle exercise, it can, in time, reverse?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which muscles collapse usually?
The pharyngeal muscles, and then the tongue actually collapses backwards as well, depending on position for sleep. But the soft palate is also mild. There's some parts of the soft palate that are innervated through vagus as well. Yeah.
What about someone who has blocked adenoids?
Adenoids are a fun.
How do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Adenoids are an inflammatory response, right? So there's something inflammatory that's triggering that. With sleep apnea, it's very difficult to do. I know a lot of kids just get their adenoids removed, and that's the most common scenario. But if you find the triggering reason for that inflammation, for that response, adenoids tend to be triggered to a specific food sensitivity or food allergy. And so if we can eliminate certain foods, I recommend, if it's possible, I realize with kids it's not so easy, but some sort of elimination diet is necessary to really bring those things down. Okay? Yeah, you can't really do much, sadly. Okay? Any other questions? We're good? So now that we know what causes vagus to go wrong, what do we have to do to figure out if it's working or not? How can we determine the best ways to figure out vagus nerve function? So there's a couple different tests I talk about in the book, and I'm going to go over them with you as well. The first one is the bowel transit time test. And so for this test, what I recommend for people is to pick up some white sesame seeds. Don't get black sesame seeds because you won't see them, hopefully. But it's a very simple thing. So take a spoonful of white sesame seeds or whatever this beige color is, put them in a glass of water. Do not chew the seeds, very important. If you chew the seeds, you will digest it. You will not eliminate it as easily. Think of it like corn, but we don't want to go with a grain version, so the seed is a better option. So because we're not chewing it, we can't break down the shell of the seed, so it passes. And so this timing chart was wrong. It just ended up being the best picture I could find. Optimally, we should be able to take that spoonful, throw it in a glass of water, and drink that glass of water so that all of the seeds get in. It should take between 16 to 20 hours in an optimal scenario, 16 to 20 hours, to start seeing it on the other end. And to finish seeing it on the other end. In an optimal scenario, 16 to 20 hours is the way it should be. Anything more than 36, we know that it's too slow. Anything less than 10 or 12, we know that it's way too fast.
36 is too slow?
36 is too slow. 36 is like, think of it like your TSH range, for example, where if you're high, then you're really, really high. But in an optimal scenario, 16 to 20 is where you want to be.
And less than 12?
Less than 10 is an issue, yeah.
So what if it's like 25?
Not so bad. It's still within the normal range, but it's not optimal. So I'm always thinking functional medicine type ranges, the optimal ranges. 16 to 20 is the optimal time. Okay? So this is an easy one. The next one does require a little bit of tech. And that's because we're going to talk about the heart and heart rate variability. Anybody here have an Oura ring? Oh, there's the two of us.
I want one so bad.
What is it?
The what?
The Oura ring. So I've got mine. We'll talk about it a little bit.
What is it?
We'll talk about it. This is actually a fitness tracker slash heart rate variability tracker. I'll show you about it. Here, take a look.
No, is it electronic?
It is electronic. But it has, you can put it on airplane mode, so there's no
It's like
EMFs.
very low.
Yeah, it's like literally the lowest, but you can put it on airplane mode, so it doesn't transmit until you take it off, and then you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
It's the only tool that does that, by the way. So what is heart rate variability? Anybody know? No? Okay. So we all know what heart rate is. Beats per minute. Very easy. We have signals going to the heart, telling the heart to beat. And the heart has its own innate beat built in. It's going to beat on its own. The SA and AV nodes do that on its own. And the electrical activity will promote that. But we have innervation that's parasympathetic through the vagus nerve to the heart, and we have sympathetic innervation through that's going to actually speed up the heart. Okay? So this is important to note that vagus nerve is going to slow down the heart rate. Sympathetic is going to raise it. The intrinsic rate of the heart is between 100 and 110 beats per minute. But what the vagus nerve does is it slows down the beats per minute. It actually causes that slope to decrease at the beginning before the beat, and it slows it down, and it essentially gets our beats per minute down to where we should see it, around 60 beats per minute. Okay? Sympathetic, on the other hand, is going to speed it up because we're in a fight or flight state. We need to run away. We need that blood pumping as quickly as possible to the muscles so that we can run away from said saber-toothed tiger. Okay? So now, we have this innervation. What's heart rate variability when we compare it to heart rate? So think of this scenario here. We've got the orange and the green, okay? In the orange scenario, we have 5 beats within that time, coming down to about 92 beats per minute. In the green scenario, 5 beats and at the same time, 92 beats per minute. What heart rate variability is a measure of the mean average between the time between the beats per minute. The length of time if in milliseconds between one beat and the next, averaged over a period of time. So let's say, for example, this scenario, the average time, because it goes from 744 to 427 to 498 to 931 milliseconds, that variation is large. And so because of that, the mean time between beats is 313 milliseconds in the variation between them. Okay, this is a whole math thing. Essentially, we want to see that number as high as possible. Whereas in this scenario, 330 or 630 to 675 to 645 to 650, those milliseconds tend to be much closer together. There's not a lot of variation. And so the mean variation between them is 31 milliseconds, which is low. And so when we look at it from a heart rate view, they look the same. 92 beats per minute is 92 beats per minute. Whereas, and we rarely see numbers this drastically different, but the heart rate variability in condition A versus condition B tells us that the person in condition A is healthier or unhealthier? Significantly healthier. Significantly healthier. Heart rate variability has been linked to positive heart rate variability as something that athletes use to make sure that they've recovered well enough from the day before so that they can push themselves. They're going to check their heart rate variability on a daily basis to see how hard they should push themselves that day. So essentially what we're looking for is lots of variation. We don't want the beats to be rhythmic. We don't want it to be staccato, very like the same consistently. We want variation. And that is because the signals coming in from the sympathetic nerves are constant and they're fast. Whereas from the vagus nerve, they're coming in once in a while. So what's happening is essentially a balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic innervation. And so we want to see the beats per minute stay at a healthy rate, but we also want to see that variability, the time between those beats, change. And that's a sign of health. If we don't have that, if we're stuck in staccato, then what's happening is a lot more sympathetic innervation is coming and a lot less parasympathetic innervation is showing up. So we're not getting that parasympathetic tone to the heart. Make sense?
Yep.
You'll often hear this mistaken. We do not want rhythmic heartbeat. We want heartbeat that's all messy. It's good. Okay? So we talked about that. It's all about balance. Balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. If one is too strong, the other can't be at that level. We need to bring them up to the same level. It's all about balance between the two. So how do we track it? I talked about the Oura Ring. OURA, if you're interested in learning more about it, OURA Ring.
OURA?
OURA, auraring.com.
How much are they?
This one, around 300,
$299.
$299 to $399.
Yeah.
And then $999 if you want a diamond in it.
Yeah.
Legitimately, there's actually diamonds in it. There,
Yeah.
which I'm still like, why? I've had this one for a year. It's actually lasted me pretty nicely. Yeah.
And what's it made of?
Does the Fitbit track it?
Fitbit Charge more recently does, but it's not as effective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then my app.
Yeah. So the more the Fitbit Charge isn't bad.
Yeah.
Depending on where you're tracking it, you're going to get the most effective. The wrist is not the most effective place, which is why the Fitbit isn't the most effective at it. It's not bad. That said, it's a good tool to see where you're at, but it's not the most effective. So
What's that?
I'll show you.
Oh,
Or I'll talk about it.
Okay,
It's the
gotcha.
CoreSense tool from Elite HRV. We tend to get the strongest, most effective numbers in the fingers and the fingertips. Okay? This is the CoreSense tool from Elite HRV. This guy's $150. It's totally worth it. 150 US.
what does it do?
Essentially, you put your finger into it, and it's going to track your heart rate from your finger.
Oh, so it does what the Oura Ring does.
It does what the Oura
but
Ring
it's
does.
more
but
effective.
I wouldn't say more effective. It's
Oh.
different. Here's the difference. The Oura Ring stays on you pretty much 23 and a half hours a day. In fact, I think I take it off like once a week to charge, so it's not something you need to worry about. So it gets a lot more data. Okay. Now, heart rate variability, to have a very accurate number, you have to track for a minimum of 6 minutes. That's how you know where you're really at. Okay. Because remember, it's about the average over a period of time. If that period of time is too short, you're not going to get an effective average. The CoreSense tool is something you can put in and you can do like a meditation while you're doing it, and that's good. But they also have like a 3-minute morning readiness check to see, are you in the sympathetic or parasympathetic? It's a very good tool, very commonly used by a lot of athletes.
How do you spell that?
CoreSense, CoreSense. The website to go to is elitehrv.com.
Elite HRV.
elitehrv.com. Okay. And then the last one here is HeartMath. Anybody heard of HeartMath? HeartMath Institute? No? So HeartMath is a different type of tool which logs your breath rate, your heart rate, and your heart rate variability. And when they're all kind of working together, it puts you in a pattern called coherence. And the fun thing about this guy is it actually is something that clips to your ear. It's a little different. So with this one, it's something you want to be sitting, doing a meditation, or just calmly going through and tracking at that time. Okay? Depends on how long you want to go for. You can do anything from 5 minutes. You can go up to, I think, an hour. I wouldn't want to have anything clipped to my ear for an hour personally, but I have all of these tools at home. And I've tried them all, and I love my Oura Ring because I don't have to think about it, and I get all my data all the time. But I like the CoreSense HRV because it actually tells you high frequency versus low frequency when you're doing it, and it's really cool at tracking. So this is a really cool tool if you ever want to just do it with a client and have them sit there and they can actually see what the numbers are like on there in real time. Oura Ring recently added the moment feature as well, which they can do, but you'd have to get it measured and whatever. So this is a great one to do as a practitioner for people. This is a great one for yourself or for your clients if they're willing to put up the money for it.
So, you know what it's made of? Is it copper?
I don't know. It's not a metal ring.
Is it on the left?
Yeah, all of the information's on there. Yeah. Okay. So now that we know how to see what's going on inside vagus, what do we do to improve vagus nerve function, to improve that HRV level? Because really what we want to see is that HRV level go up over time. And that's telling us that this person is becoming healthier, that they're getting to a better point with their overall health. All right? So how do we hack the vagus nerve? Number one, we talked about the breath. We talked about the importance of the breath. In my research for this, for the book, it always came down to the breath. Always. Everything came back to the breath. They talked about yoga, they talked about Pilates, they talked about all of these fun little tools that would impact HRV, and it always came back to breathing because all of those things are focused on your breath and measuring and managing your breath. So teaching your clients, teaching yourselves first, but then teaching your clients how to breathe correctly will change everything. Meditation will do that as well if you're focusing on your breathing as well. So that's one great way to do that. I love this video because it actually shows you just how important it is to breathe with your diaphragm. So let me show you right here. This is actually the diaphragm, and then right below it is actually a part of the liver. And then we've got part of the colon over here. And then we've got other organs internally, okay? And this area is your lungs. This is the front, and this is the back. Now watch what's happening when you're breathing using your diaphragm. Look at the organs underneath getting moved and massaged and actually given a specific thing going on. It kind of does look like a baby. Right? But essentially, when you look at this, you're like, oh my goodness, that makes so much sense. I need to get motion. Motion is life, right? So in order for motion to occur inside there, I need to breathe correctly, using the correct muscle, the correct tools to do so. And so that's why diaphragmatic breathing is so effective. And then on top of that, think of it, if all of these organs underneath are innervated by vagus, and there's movement occurring in them, and they're being massaged, that 80% afferent is being stimulated, and vagus nerve is being stimulated. We're getting signals up to our brain that something good is occurring. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Number 2, cold showers.
Oh, yeah. Scandinavian.
So I don't have my patients start with an ice bath, but I tell them to finish their showers with 30 seconds of cold. And why do you think that is? What does it come back to? I just kind of said it. It comes back to your breath, actually.
Yeah.
Circulation, partly, there is an effect through circulation, but it definitely triggers breath. What's the first thing that happens when you jump in a cold lake or water?
Yeah.
Deep breath. You get into a state of stress. But what do you have to do? Get yourself calm. Cold showers are like adding a weight to an exercise. They're adding a weight to your breathing exercise. It's training it. It's making it a little bit stronger, a little bit stronger. So start with 30 seconds of cold at the end of your shower, right on the back of your neck, or armpits if you're feeling lucky. But start with that cold shower because it's going to stimulate that breath to be controlled and teach you to control your breath to get you into a calm state, even though there's something stressful occurring around you. Once you're up for it, ice baths are a wonderful way to stimulate the vagus nerve.
So taking a cold shower on the front side of the body?
It works as well. Just pick the most sensitive areas. As a man, for me, it's the back.
So for...
It could work. Whatever works best for you in terms of causing you to get into that stress state, if it's the front, go for it. Find a spot that works best for you. For me, it tends to be the back of the neck.
So it doesn't need to be the whole body, it's just one spot.
It starts there, and then eventually it gets to be an entire body type thing. Okay? Something we're missing today, sadly, because it's Canada in the winter. Why do you think we feel so good on vacation? Why are we so calm? Partially because there's not a lot of stress on our plate and things to do and a schedule to adhere to, but we're also generally not vacationing in places where there's a lack of sun. And we tend to have improved vitamin D levels, we tend to have improved, vitamin D obviously, but essentially everything that comes from positive sunlight exposure, okay? There's a really great tool for clients that can't get out of the weather here if they're dealing with seasonal affective disorder. Highly recommend this. It's called the Human Charger. There is some really, really cool research being done. Have you guys heard of this?
No.
The Human Charger is, think of it like a little iPod. Like it literally looks like a little iPod. with headphones, and it's actually lights.
Light. Oh yeah, I've seen one.
And that light has been proven to go in and stimulate parts of the brain that are light sensitive.
Is it the blue light or something?
It's not blue light, it is a very white light, but the blue light is what triggers that internally. Blue light on the eyes, I have a whole nother talk about that. We're not going to get
It's
into
called the
that.
human charger?
Human charger.
Does the red light do the same?
Red light has a very similar effect. You can use that, but something that, like, let's say for example, somebody's working or they're out and around and about, this is an easy thing so that you've got the light going on, but you're not like, it's just an easy tool for day-to-day life. Yeah. Okay, human charger. I saw them at the biohacking summit a year ago, and like that tool is spectacular. The research that's coming out on it is unreal.
Is it expensive?
Like $200. Yeah.
It's still incredible.
Yeah. And then we talked about the motor innervation, the muscles that are stimulated by vagus nerve. And so one of the best tools we can use is gargling. These are all like simple tools that you can give your clients that are going to make massive drastic changes. One of the best things that I've noticed for a lot of people is, especially when they're dealing with SIBO. Do you guys know what SIBO is?
Yes.
Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. What tends to happen is that bacteria gets backed up in the small intestine and just can't continue moving. And why do you think that is? It's because peristalsis isn't happening. We're not pushing that bacteria down. It's not moving correctly. What nerve stimulates peristalsis?
Vagus nerve.
Vagus nerve. So with SIBO, vagus nerve activation is crucial. And we know that we're having like a SIBO epidemic right now.
Yeah.
So this is a really important way to do that. The way gargling works is we're stimulating those specific muscles in the throat. It's going to stimulate the airway because we have to keep our airway open while we're gargling in order for us to, stay alive. And it's also going to stimulate the larynx muscles at the same time. Okay? The muscles around the voice box. So if we get our clients, and this is something I get everyone to do, is keep a glass beside their sink for morning and evening, and keep a little bit of salt. And take some warm water, throw some salt in there. It's great for antibacterial purposes. Clean out the back of your mouth where your toothbrush can't reach. And you take a sip and you gargle that. And you gargle that water as hard as you possibly can. This is key to making it work. It's not just sitting there and going, because that's not really going to stimulate those muscles. It's not going to be an urge to stay alive because your pharyngeal muscles are going to just collapse. If we're going really, really hard, like full-on gargling, we should be tearing out of our eyes.
Oh.
That's a sign that you're stimulating the vagus nerve in the brainstem directly. So gargling is huge. I get them to do 3 sips, hold it for 30 seconds at the very, very least. 3 times in the morning, 3 times in the evening, or 3 sips morning, 3 sips evening. That little bit can have a huge effect.
Meaning like 3, 1.
3, hold it for 30 seconds, spit it out. 2, 30 seconds, 3, 30 seconds, spit it out. Okay? And do that in the morning and then 3 again in the evening. Okay? Another really important thing is how do you sleep? Your sleep position. Oftentimes we're sleeping on our back and it's making it easier for our tongue to collapse backwards and our muscles to not work well. On top of that, it's been proven for heart rate variability purposes that sleeping on your side is the most effective way to activate vagus nerve. And funny enough, left side is better than right. I imagine that was your question.
I was gonna ask as a chiropractor.
I'm a side sleeping proponent
Yeah, what
all the
about your
time.
neck cord?
Depends on your pillow. Your
Yeah,
pillow
what
is
pillow
really
do you like?
the fun thing. Depends on the person. So I actually use
Buckwheat
2 pillows. Buckwheat pillows are good. Depends on the person, 100%. I actually
Okay.
use a memory foam, cleaned up memory foam, like one of those good ones.
Would you use a pillow between your legs?
Depends on the person again. I don't need it personally, but some people do. My wife needs one, just to keep her off my side of the bed. But she doesn't sleep on her side, so she doesn't keep it there. A pillow between the legs is very effective if you don't want to move big thing is, as a chiropractor, moving during the night is also very important. So I recommend switching sides as much as you can.
I'm a side sleeper, so that's amazing. And but my sister's doing massage therapy, and she's like, "Stop sleeping on your side."
No,
I'm
it's
like,
so good for you.
Okay.
It's heart rate tell her your heart rate variability goes up when you sleep.
okay.
Sisters.
Yeah.
I have two brothers, so siblings.
Siblings, yeah.
And interestingly, the one that really caught my attention, and it's being talked about a lot more recently, is laughter and social interaction. And there was a very cool study that was done that showed people that see themselves as social beings and social people, and people that don't. People that are very kind of intrinsic, kind of loner factor type of ideas. And depression was a big factor for these people. And there was a very strong correlation. HRV was always higher in the social groups. Always, always, always. So getting out and trying to, yes.
Wouldn't that increase, like when your social interaction increase once your vagus nerve increases because you're like anxiety?
Both, but
Yeah.
you can push your vagus nerve to improve by going out in social situations. Right? So this is where, yes, you'll go out more when you don't have the health challenges that are associated with low HRV. But if you go out and you push yourself to do it, then you're going to stimulate vagus in that way as well. So the things that are good for you are also the things that you want to do for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or the things that you will do when you're healthy are the things you want to do when you're unhealthy to get healthy.
Cool.
Cool? All right. That is it for today.
Thank you.
Oh, that was really good. Thank you.